Hi everybody, it's Terry Ryder, founder of hotspotting.com.au. I'm here with Tim Guest from Infinite Wealth, and on the 15th of March I'll be in Perth to present my popular seminar, The Keys to Successful Property Investment. And during that seminar we'll be discussing many of the key elements, including where the various major markets in Australia are at right now, where investors can find growth in the near future, the importance of accessing good quality information given the prevalence of so much misinformation in news media at the moment, and a whole lot more. And it's opportune that I'm focusing on Perth at this time because the Western Australian capital, I think, presents a particular opportunity at the moment. So Tim Guest, your business, Infinite Wealth, has a national focus, but you're based in Perth. What are you seeing in the Perth market at the moment?
Yeah, look, well, I mean, the first thing that's definitely prevalent and probably what's coming through in a lot of the news media is, I guess, a little bit of disenchantment. And that is, it's always the case in investing and in markets that, the market is often a little bit behind, people's sentiment is often behind where the market's currently at.
Yeah.
We've certainly seen, quite considerable uptakes in things like employment. We're starting to see this trickle through to the sentiment, and often happens particularly at the beginning of a year as well. People often tend to like to put the years behind them and, focus on the year ahead. So, it has been a couple of certainly, I would probably say more so quiet years than down years in the Perth market. But I think, what we've got coming forward is looking particularly promising.
Yeah, what we're seeing, particularly looking at the sales volumes numbers a year ago, we couldn't find a single suburb in Perth that actually had a rising trajectory in terms of sales activity. But now we're actually finding multiple locations around the Perth metropolitan area that are starting to show some uplift. And it's a sign amongst many others that the market is, after 3 or 4 dormant years, you might say, is really starting to come back. And it's a very opportune time, we think, for people to be considering, because prices are down, but we think they're going to start rising from this point onwards. Is that the way you would see it?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the Perth market and West Australia as a whole is just, the sentiment in the market is very closely linked to the resources industry, and probably more so than it really should be. And if you look over the last couple of years, there's still been regions in Western Australia that have often, and Perth, that have offered some really good opportunities, things like around the Rockingham area, things like with the redevelopment at the Navy base that's going on down there, things like down in Armidale and the employment opportunities with some of the industry moving out there, and then of course also with the huge infrastructure spending that's happened around Forestfield. So I've been surprised by, I guess, what the statistics have shown, considering the amount of infrastructure spending in those areas. But now that the stronger sentiment is really coming back to the resources industry, that will flow through into all other aspects of the West Australian economy. And like you said, I think we're going to start to see some pretty good uptake in the Perth property market over the coming year or two.
Yeah, Tim, one of the things we'll be focusing on at the Perth event on the 15th of March is the importance of accessing good quality information to base investment decisions on a sound footing, rather than what so many property investors tend to do, which is absorb media messages. And I know that you have a particular focus on good information at Infinite Wealth. Yeah,
definitely. So I don't need to tell you, Terry, and I probably don't need to tell, excuse me for my alarm going off there, but I probably don't need to tell your followers either. But look, I mean, property investment is one of the most common forms of investment, particularly for hardworking everyday Australians. And if you look at the statistics, the overwhelming majority of people don't do well at it. Like, we know from the ATO that only 75% of investors only ever buy one. And of course, one's never going to really get you to the kind of financial position that will provide you with the security and peace of mind that most people are searching for. And even if we go to the other end of the spectrum, only 6% of property investors ever get to 3 or more. So we can see that the overwhelming majority of property investors really do fail to successfully invest in property. And I think that comes down to, what people are just taught about property investment is wrong. Not just they're taught the wrong areas, they're taught the wrong times, but they're also taught the wrong strategies. And that's primarily what we provide for our clients, is actually sitting down, looking at their own individual circumstances, having them design strategies which suit their individual strategies, and allowing them to build significant portfolios, but at the same time keeping their cash flow low and allowing them to then hold their portfolio while they move through every stage of the economic cycle, and really long-term investing is the key to being successful in property investment. And, I think our track record speaks for ourselves. We've designed strategies for 3,000 people. We've helped our clients invest over $350 million worth of money into investments, and we get very high customer satisfaction ratings, and we also enjoy giving back to the community by donating 10% of our profits to charity.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that contribution, Tim. The event in Perth is at City West Receptions on Thursday, the 15th of March in the evening. I hope to see you there and get along and listen to both myself and Tim Guest from Infinite Wealth talking about property investments and the way to make it successful. It's Terry Ryder from hotspotting.com.au. Thanks. Okay.
I think it's still recording, though. I've lost you on the screen, but the recording button's still flashing.